Welcome back to Coast Vue. I really enjoyed that conversation. And before we move on to my next guest, I want to share with you something my friend Robert St. John posted. He's the really extraordinarily successful restaurateur and author and just a jack of all trades. He's and a good friend of mine and this show. But he posted something from George Bernard Shaw, and I really think it makes a lot of sense. And here's what it says. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. I thought that, that's really fast. Let me read it again, just to let it sink in. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. We need more unreasonable men, that's for sure. And I just think it gives you something to think about. Okay, let's move on now. Hey, listen, I was my wife the other morning. I go to bed early. I get up early. I get up real early. Like, for example, this morning I got up at 3 o'clock, and I was rolling fast at 3 o'clock this morning. But I go to bed early, 8:30ish at night. And Ann said the last couple of nights at around 9 o'clock that a boat came through and shined a light all up in our, on our boat list, and then went to the neighbors and shined the light all over, and she watched them shine lights everywhere. And it hit me that alligator season opened up the last week in August. And so most likely, those were alligator hunters looking for what was probably an 8 to 10 foot alligator that's been hanging out around this area. And that's my suspicion. And with that said, I wanted to invite someone who will know a lot about sort of where we are in that process. It's Ricky Flynt. He's a wildlife coordinator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He's the Alligator Program Coordinator. He's a good friend of Coast Vue, but he's also a good friend of mine on SuperTalk Outdoors. He'll be joining me on Monday to talk more about the statewide efforts. But anyway, good morning, Ricky. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good to be here.
So probably was an alligator hunter, don't you think?
I say it's very good odds.
Very good odds. What you hearing about coastal Mississippi? Ultimately, how many permits did you guys issue for down here?
So the state is broke up into 7 alligator hunting zones. Actually, coastal Mississippi is broke up into parts of 3 hunting zones. You have the southeast zone, which is primarily the Pascagoula River Basin, and then we have the south central that encompasses part of the Pearl River, and then the southwest is a little further to the west there. And so each of those zones have, the southeast has 150, the south central has 130 in it.
Yeah, so just so people know, you don't just go buy a license. There's a permitting process. You have to, get in the draw. Tell how that works.
So we have an application period that's done online. We do it during the first week of June. We give people a full week to submit an application. In your application, you have to select one of the 7 zones. You only get one application. Then we have a third-party entity that conducts a random drawing for us by computer. And once those people have been drawn, an email goes out to them with a direct link to go and purchase their permit. They have 48 hours to do so. At the end of that 48 hours, any leftover permits that we have go into a second draw, and then the same process occurs again until we have all 960. Actually, we oversell by just a little bit every year, and this year we had 980 permits.
Wow, that's incredible. There's a lot of interest in this, isn't there? I mean, there's not a shortage of alligator population in this state, is there?
No, alligators get a lot of attention over the last 10, 15 years, and more and more people are becoming familiar with it. And our numbers of applicants are increasing slightly every year. We're now to just a little over 7,000 people who apply for those 960 permits.
So what you hearing in terms of the success of alligator hunting here in coastal Mississippi so far?
So far, we thought that going into the weekend, following all of the heavy rains that we got last week, particularly Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, some places getting in the double digits of inches of rain over 2 or 3 days. Pretty much every waterway in the southern 2/3 of the state was out of its banks. Some of those in flood stage. Was kind of expecting harvest to really drop off significantly, but looking at the harvest report so far, which incidentally, all these permitted alligator hunters are required to do an online report of their harvest and a survey, and they must also tag their alligator immediately. So we're able to go and look at these reports. Now, granted, some people are a little bit slow getting their reports in, but I've got over 400 alligators reported harvested as of yesterday. And we're just now halfway through the season. So, and last year we had just a little shy of 800 alligators harvested total. So, we're on schedule to see a normal harvest level. So, and I'm seeing lots of pictures, lots of social media of a number of alligators being taken over the state. They're in that 12 to 12 foot. I got a couple there in the over 13 feet, and seeing some pictures from the coast as well, in the 11, 12 foot range. Very nice alligators.
I read about a new state record and a tie for the world record. What's that all about?
Man, that's some exciting stuff there. It's a little bittersweet news for me. As you know, in 2007, I started a program tagging alligators in the state in hopes of getting some mark recapture data, much like duck banding. Duck hunters harvest a banded duck and report it and get some information about the movement of ducks. Well, that was my goal for alligators, is to learn a little bit about how much these alligators grow, how far they move. And in 2009, June of 2009, I captured an alligator up here on the Pearl River, just north of Ross Barnett Reservoir, that was 10 foot 2 inches, and it was a female. And I knew at the time that was going to be an exceptional alligator to be documented, and got with my cohorts in Louisiana and Florida, the ones who know the mostest, and confirmed that 10 foot 2 inch alligator would tie the world record for the longest female alligator, wild, free ranging. At the time, Florida had a record of a 10 foot 2 inch alligator from 1984. All these years now, keep thinking that someone's probably going to run into this female alligator and catch it, and we'll get some information about how much it had grown and potentially break the world record. Well, that had never happened. It's been 13 years. And then Sunday night, while I was out working, I got a call from one of the processors up here and says, "Hey, what's the record for the length on a female alligator?" I said, "Well, for a hunter, it's 10 foot. And he says, "Well, I think I've got one here that's going to break the record. I've measured it at 10 foot 3. I said, "Really?" He says, "I say, you sure it's a female?" He says, "I checked it twice." He says, "Matter of fact, it's got some of y'all's tags in it." I said, "Well, if it's tagged and it's anywhere in the 10 foot range," I said, "that must be yellow 410. And he said, "That's it. The tags are on the tail and the tags are on the feet." And I said, "Well, I'll be dogged." So I quit what I was doing. I stopped patrolling. I went and drove to Yazoo City to meet these guys. Great bunch of guys. Jim Denson and Richie Denson from Madison, originally from Leake County, Mississippi, had caught this alligator. It was their very first hunting trip, very first alligator they ever caught. And we measured it, and guess what? It's still exactly 10 foot 2 inches, and after 13 years. So what we know a little bit about alligators is they do have determinate growth, particularly the females. There is a point where they just stop growing. And so this is some great information. We have harvested the femur bones from this alligator. I'm going to be picking them up today. I'm reaching out to the researchers, one of the greater researchers in Florida, Mr. Alan Woodward, and we're trying to get in contact with a laboratory that can still do this process where you take a microscopic cross section of the femur, and you basically count annular growth rings on it just like you would a tree. And it's not entirely accurate, but we'll at least get a minimum age from this alligator. And I'm not going to be surprised to see that it might be in excess of 75, maybe even 100 years old.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, we're coming to the end of this segment. We'll pick it up on the other side, but the tagging program, what a statement. Yellow 410, what a great statement for why you've done this tagging program. And I understand why it's bittersweet. But the truth is, it probably wasn't going to grow anymore. So here we are. We've got the data. You were able to do your research. We'll be back on the other side with Ricky Flynt from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks and the Alligator Program Coordinator, and continue our conversation. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast Vue. We're having a terrific conversation with my friend Ricky Flynn, who's the Alligator Program Coordinator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And we were just talking about how at the beginning of the show, my wife had seen guys with spotlights come by our pier, and she said, "I wonder if they're thieves." And I said, "Of course they're not. They're either fishermen, but if they have spotlights, they're not fishing. They're probably looking for alligators." And I would say 99.999% chance that's what they were. And we're just talking about the fact that we launched the alligator season in the last week of August, a really kind of intricate permitting process, a lot of checks and balances. They have to go in and they have to tag the alligators when they take one. They've got to go into the system at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks and report that they've tagged an alligator. And a lot of great data comes from that. And one of over 400 alligators so far. And one of them was Yellow 410, one of the tagged 10-foot 2-inch females. What a great story for you to tell. And as I mentioned, going to break, you get so much data about it. Was it generally in the area where you thought it would be captured?
Within 100 yards.
Wow.
Of the same location where it was caught in 2009, 13 years ago. Which we know adult females have a much reduced home range. They rarely get much over about a mile outside of their core area. And males could go as much as 16 miles away from their core area. But yeah, she was right there in the exact same spot. In fact, when I met the hunters that tagged it, I said, "I'm going to pull up my Google Maps here." I said, I'm going to point to where it was. I said, "You tell me how close it was." And he goes, "That's exactly where we caught it."
That's so interesting. Hey, listen, one of the farms that we lease up in the Delta has a really small pond, but there's a lot of wildlife in it. Ducks like it, but it's a small pond, really. But it's about, I want to say, maybe 30 yards from a bottom. I mean, a big cypress bottom that runs for, probably 2 or 3 miles. And last year, because there was not much rain, there was we never saw it, but you could see the travel corridor from the pond into the cypress bottom. And what this female, I'm assuming it was a female, had done is wall her out this area, significant area where it had been laying. And our guess on this thing is it was a giant. We assumed it was a female just because not long after that, the alligators hatched, and you could hear the little baby alligators all over inside that pond. But chances are she's still probably pretty near that same area, isn't it?
Oh yeah. The work I do with documenting the nest up there on the Pearl River every year, and seeing what kind of success we're having, pretty much I've been doing this now for 18 years. And I kind of learned where different females are in the area, and I can go to those same areas, and they may not nest in the exact same spot, but usually within about 100 yards or so, I'll find another nest the next year. So they're pretty much sticking to that same general area.
What's interesting, Ricky, just coming back to that example that I just gave, when you're standing next to it and you've got fresh claw marks or whatever you want to call their feet marks, when you're standing next to it and it's obviously a big one, it's ominous looking. It's ominous feeling.
Yeah.
Even though there's not an alligator anywhere nearby, it you get a sense of, my goodness, this is a big, in this case, female, most likely. But
we keep up with records of the largest male and largest female, heaviest, longest. And every year I get phone calls or emails from hunters who say, I've got the new state record. This is the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life, and turns out it's just a 12.5. It may even be 13 feet. And it is a big alligator, 600-700 pounds, but it's not quite the state record. And it's fun to visit with these folks. And when you haven't ever been right next to these 12 and 13 foot alligators that are 50, 60 inches in belly girth and 40, 45 inches in tail girth, it's pretty impressive once you get right next to them.
Well, think about a 40-inch man waist, and you're talking about a tail girth that's wider than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's significant. How much the state record? Remind me.
14 feet 3/4 of an inch.
And how much did it weigh?
I think it's 823 pounds.
Wow, that's incredible. Hey, listen, one thing about coastal Mississippi in the short time we have left, what we see when there's a lot of rain or more brackish water, we see more alligators. When it's really salty, we don't see as many. Or they must not like salty water generally.
Well, they certainly can survive in brackish water. In fact, we've got some tag mark recapture data from alligators that were released in Louisiana down in Lake Pontchartrain that have migrated up to as far as Biloxi. I've got two records of that. So I'm pretty sure they're swimming coastal wise across.
Right. There's no doubt. Of course, we see them along the beach. We're about out of time, but I'll say this: the last time we went wade fishing in the lagoons of Horn Island, holy mackerel, there's a very healthy population there. I can tell you that. Anyway, Ricky Flynt, it's been a pleasure, man. I look forward to talking to you on SuperTalk Outdoors on Monday.
Great.
Have a great day.
Y'all too.
We'll see you on Monday. Have a great day. See you later.